I can remember way back in 2014 when I started hearing rumblings of this company called OnePlus. I remember thinking, what a weird name for a phone company. But man, oh man, people were talking some wild stuff about this company. They just released this device called the OnePlus One that was $299. And this thing had crazy specs for the time, right? Thanks to Android Authority for this OnePlus price history, because it's going to be really useful for this video. I'll drop the link in the description. Go give them a click because they earned it on this one. This thing was $299, but it got you flagship specs at the time. And these specs aren't going to sound good right now, but keep in mind, this was 2014, right? Snapdragon 801, 3 gigs of RAM. It was a 1080p 5.5-inch display. This thing was off the freaking hook. It was an unbelievable value for $299. This thing was absolutely crazy. OnePlus had this amazing groundswell of support from people. This was the budget phone that could compete with the most top of the line phones on the market. And it had this community underneath it, this community behind it, pushing it forward. And it was something I was watching very, very closely. And they kept doing this, right? The OnePlus 2 was $329, and it was a little bit better. The OnePlus 3 had the newest Snapdragon 820. It was $399. They're creeping up, but guess what? All prices are creeping up, and they're staying cheaper than pretty much every other primary big phone on the market. And their fans were thanking them for it. I mean, look, OnePlus phones were cheap. They looked good. They had the best specs around, and the software was awesome. Oxygen OS was so clean. It was so fast. You could actually argue that it was better than stock Android. And for me, that was like heresy. That's the first thing I wanted to do with a new phone back in 2014, 2015, that era, is I wanted to root the phone and put something like CyanogenMod on it and rock a customized, slightly stock OS. And Oxygen OS, people were telling me, hey, Oxygen OS is actually better than stock Android. It's really, really good. But for me, I didn't actually jump onto the OnePlus bandwagon until all the way into 2019 with the OnePlus 7 Pro. Now, this thing was the most expensive phone OnePlus had made yet, right? It was $669, but the camera was apparently going to be better. This thing had a 90 hertz refresh rate. Let's just look at what they've written here. Snapdragon 855 had this incredible looking pop-up selfie camera. It was motorized. Thing was incredible. UFS 3.0 storage. The specs were unbelievable. And for $669, it still undercut everything. And I really love the color of the thing as well. So I went to my local T-Mobile store and I purchased the OnePlus 7 Pro, and I still own that phone. And if you've actually ever seen me do anything in the last few months with an overhead camera like this, that is actually the OnePlus 7 Pro right there, serving as my overhead camera via Droid Cam. So it lives right here in front of me. It's right there off screen. I'll show you a picture of what you're missing there right now. And I love that phone. It's such a good phone. I had the opportunity to trade it in towards some stuff here recently, and I couldn't do it. I didn't want to get rid of it. I wanted this thing to stick around. It looks so good still. It was so fast. Oh my God, that phone was just blazingly fast at the time. And I thought the camera took some pretty reasonably good photos. Was it the greatest camera in the world? No, but that's a pretty good little macro photo for something that doesn't have a macro lens. How about this one? Back when for some reason I had 3 two-door cars because I have a problem with fun cars. One more to end things out here. If you're in the Knoxville area, House Mountain, incredible view. Really good solid camera if this will load in here. I thought this thing was great, and I really loved that phone. It was such a great device. Now, why am I talking about all this OnePlus history and how all this nonsense? Well, after the OnePlus 7, OnePlus 7 Pro, the 7T was about the same. Things started taking kind of a weird turn for people, right? The OnePlus 8, people didn't seem to think it was that big of a leap again, right? Things were kind of beginning to stagnate just a little bit, and they finally made a device in the OnePlus 8 Pro that if you fully spec'd it out would be $1,000. And that is such a long distance away from the $299 place that they started. Now, look, I get it. They wanted to build up this fan base with cheap phones. And as it grew, they were going to raise their price and eventually try to compete at the flagship level. And that's what they were doing. And now, most recently, the OnePlus 9 is all the way up to $969 for the OnePlus 9 Pro. And this was a phone that I think reviewed okay. But that's really about the best you can say about the OnePlus 9 Pro. It's a good phone, but it's not, some incredible device that I think when you look at it for $1,000 is really a device that for $1,000 you can recommend all that easily to people, because there are so many better options. And now there are other flagship killers available that are better than this phone for cheaper in a lot of ways. They've become the flagship that they sought to kill in the beginning without becoming a flagship that couldn't be killed. And now I think there is a massive threat to OnePlus here in the United States. And it's a threat that I don't think any of us really saw coming. And that threat is Google. Because what Google just did by launching a $599 Pixel 6 is they effectively created the ultimate flagship killer. This thing has cameras that are absolutely top of the line, bar none, except maybe the iPhone 13 and the Pixel 6 Pro. It has very solid battery life. It's got updates for 5 years. Once Android 12 bugs get taken care of and so forth, it's going to be an unbelievably good device for $599. And it just feels so ironic to me that as OnePlus has slowly lost their way, and it feels like they've forgotten everything that made them special to begin with. Hell, they're about to lose Oxygen OS. It's about to just be rolled in with Color OS, which is from another brand that they're sort of like in a conglomeration with. They've lost all the things that made them cool and different, and Pixel seems to have found them and is now cramming that down their throat. I don't know at this point right now. And look, I get there's the OnePlus Nord, which is cheaper, but I think it's even cheaper than the Pixel 6, but it's a lot worse than the Pixel 6. It's worse than the Pixel 6 in effectively every way. You're going to be able to look at a Pixel 6 or a OnePlus 9, and the Pixel 6 is considerably cheaper and considerably better in effectively every way. Now, I'm sure there are deals to be had, but right now, $969 on their website for the OnePlus 9 Pro. Again, $599 for the Pixel 6, which, like I said, it's just a better device. And on top of that, look, when we talk about the OnePlus Nord and these cheaper phones, because they are still making cheap phones, but they aren't the phone that they used to make. They're as cheap as the phones that they used to make, but they're not bleeding edge specs anymore. They're mid-range chips. They're mid-range phones. And Samsung kind of has a stranglehold on that already with some of their devices that are frankly just better devices. They have better cameras and usually better chipsets too. I just don't know what OnePlus is even going to do at this point. I mean, they've become a flagship, and maybe they could have competed at flagship, but now with the Pixel on the market, I don't see who could possibly recommend to you a OnePlus device right now. If it's the OnePlus Nord, I'm going to tell you to buy a Samsung. If it's something more expensive, if you're going to say, yeah, I want a flagship, but I'm not, I don't really want a Samsung. I don't want to spend over $1,000. I'm going to tell you buy a Pixel 6 or a Pixel 6 Pro. There's no room to recommend OnePlus anymore at all for me. It's just crazy to see how quickly this company has completely fallen from grace for so many of us after being a device that I loved so much to now being a device that I can't ever imagine having any desire to purchase or to recommend. Guys, what do you think about this? Have you had any experience with OnePlus devices? What has your experience been watching OnePlus slowly bastardize its own self into the thing it sought to destroy while just slowly ruining its good name with controversies and poor decisions? Remember when they got caught with kind of faking benchmark scores in a way, and then they put a camera on a phone that could see through like plastic and clothing and stuff? That was a pretty bad look. Let me know in the comments down below if you think Google has in fact fully murdered OnePlus at this point in the United States. Guys, thanks for making it to the end of today's video. Stay tuned for more content just like this, and until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.